If you were to ask Universal Orlando what the crown jewel of Epic Universe is, I think they would say without hesitation that it's the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Ministry of Magic. And in all honesty, I'd have to agree with them. Listen, folks, if you were to give me just one word, just one, to describe this land, I would have to say impressive. But if you were to give me 23 words, then I'd have to say it's impressive that it's still been able to succeed and be an elite land in spite of the several pitfalls that plague the land. I don't know why you gave me 23 words, but I appreciate it. I need to get that out there. But in all seriousness, folks, the reality is this land is about ambitious and grandiose as theme park lands get. Heck, it's just as ambitious and grandiose as the other Harry Potter lands in Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley over in Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure. But I would maybe even argue that it's more ambitious and grand than those lands. I mean, heck, the scale in this land is absurd. It makes the buildings in Diagon Alley look like a miniature Lego playset. And that's not even me subjectively speaking here, folks. I believe the official stat from Universal here is that the shortest building in Ministry of Magic is taller than the tallest building in Diagon Alley. Now that's saying something. But it's not all about the size of everything in the land that's impressive. It's also the little details, the small, tiny, almost unnoticeable details throughout the land that really make it shine. From posters on the wall to talking portraits to the apartment building that's 5 stories up and is so far back in the land you can barely see it, yet is detailed to the gills. This land is doing what Diagon Alley did, from just an overwhelming amount of specific details filled with Easter eggs and taking that to a whole nother level. And whether it's in the land itself, in the show, or on the ride, this land is chock full of technology that is simply top of the line. I mean, it's about as complex as you can get in the modern age. And I mean, I'm not even kidding. I mean, there's some things from a technological standpoint that they do in this land that are so beyond our grasp as humans at the moment that they literally feel like magic. I mean, I'm sure in a few years they won't quite feel that way, but right now it's like, how in the world did they do that? But the wins of the land don't stop there, because the 2 restaurants in this land are both honestly smash hits. I mean, they're both delivering not only on high quality food, but extremely unique food for what you would expect to get in a theme park, which, to be quite honest, in all fairness, the 3 Broomsticks and Leaky Cauldron before it were kind of doing something a little different there too, offering British food in a quick service style. Of course, that's something you could probably get a lot in the UK, but here in North America, British food is not typically available on quick service menus, so that was already kind of revolutionary in and of itself. But Universal took it a step further by having a French restaurant and a German restaurant in this land that are both delivering on food that, again, not only would you not expect to see on a quick service menu, but in North America, maybe have never seen on a quick service menu. And usually when that's the case, it's usually for good reason, right? There's a reason why we don't sell this quick service, because if you made it quickly, it would taste like absolute garbanzo beans. But believe it or not, the food is actually really good. And chief among them, believe it or not, is the soup. I know, crazy to say, but yes, quick service theme park soup is a winner. And I already know what some of you are saying right now. Wait a minute. Hot soup in already hot and humid Florida? Are you out of your mind? Who would want that? And listen, folks, let me tell you something. You just outed yourself. You are not a real soup head if you just said that. If you really like soup, if you're a part of the fan club, you don't care what the weather's outside. It could be -20 or it could be 120. It doesn't matter. I'm having soup all day, all night. And let me tell you, folks, as a real soup head, I could tell this soup is not coming out of a can. It is not coming out of some giant communal pot that's been sitting on the stove for 2 weeks. No, folks, this is actually really good soup. In particular, the French onion soup is a huge hit. I mean, that soup is awesome. And it comes with a side salad, making its price tag of about $14. Actually, not a terrible deal. It's way cheaper than any other meal you're going to get in the parks. And honestly, it's a pretty filling meal. You wouldn't necessarily expect it to be, but with the soup and the salad combined, it actually does make for a pretty decent meal. But here's the kicker, folks. When you exit that French restaurant, you are entering into France. You are entering into the Wizarding Paris section of the land, which is pretty much primarily what I have talked about this entire video, which is strange because, again, what's the name of this land? It's the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic. And yet I just spent all this time talking solely about the Paris section because that is pretty much what the entire actual guest pathway part of this land is. In a somewhat strange decision to me, the Ministry of Magic is sectioned off completely into the queue for the Battle at the Ministry ride. Now, there's no question about it that the actual quality of the building and the recreation of the Ministry of Magic is top notch from Universal. I mean, dude, when you enter into this building, I mean, your jaw just hits the floor. I mean, the scale, the level of detail is absurd. I mean, they literally built individual office rooms in all of these spaces and even put a mirror at the top to make it look like they're extending out into the clouds. Like, I mean, there's so many little details here that make this whole thing come together, and it really is a faithful adaptation that certainly is going to make any Harry Potter fan happy. Plus, I mean, the Flu Network idea to get into this part of the land, it's genius. It is the Instagram moment of this land on the same level as the dragon over in Diagon Alley. This is the moment everyone's got their phones out because it is just that dang good as far as creating an artificial moment for guests to sort of experience and feel like, wow, I really experienced something special there. But when you're ultimately waiting in line inside of the ministry, you can't help but feel like this should have been a part of the land that I could have actually freely walked around in, and there should have been shops and maybe even a restaurant in here that could have actually made this land feel a lot more alive and have areas where there's interactive wand elements and stuff like that. Instead, it's just the queue for the ride. And I mean, ultimately, this is a bit of a shame. It is a bit of wasted potential, but I mean, there's a reason why that's the case. Unfortunately, this was all kind of a timing issue for Universal because they ultimately started developing this land while the Fantastic Beasts franchise was still, running strong and looking like it was going to be sort of the future of the Harry Potter franchise, only for it to blow up in a fiery mess before Universal could finish this land. Meaning that Universal had to take what they had of a Fantastic Beasts land and try their best to convert it into a Harry Potter land. And ultimately, that's why we get the Ministry of Magic shoehorned in here, and that's why we still have the Wizarding Paris being the bulk of this land, even though it is not a location that most guests really resonate with. In fact, in that regard, it's very reminiscent of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge over in Disney's Hollywood Studios, which went ahead with the idea of, instead of taking a location from the films, a beloved film franchise in Star Wars that people knew and connected with and had some sort of emotional attachment with, and instead created a new land and a new location from the ground up, ultimately sacrificing the sentimental value and nostalgia that lands like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Hogsmeade, and Diagon Alley hold with guests, because those are locations that they're familiar with. Those are locations that they remember great moments from the films or from the books with. And when you see those locations materialized in front of you, recreated right in front of you in the flesh, in physical, real reality, it generates an awe-inspiring moment, which is something that Galaxy's Edge suffers from, but so does the Ministry of Magic land here, as the bulk of it, the vast majority of it, is indeed Wizarding Paris, which was only shown as a location in one film, that being the second Fantastic Beasts film. So it's not really a location that people hold much sentimentality for or have much of a connection with. And even though the land is undoubtedly impressive, it is grand, it is an amazing spectacle, heck, it's just a great land, period, you can't help but feel like it is missing one thing. And this is what's missing. The only sort of nostalgia factor, the only sort of awe-inspiring thing in that regard that exists in this land is the Ministry of Magic, which is only in the queue for the ride. As impressive as the rest of the land is, and how amazing it is from a details perspective and from a theming perspective, at the end of the day, it is just missing that, where this land sort of almost feels foreign because the name that's slapped on top of this, Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, does not at all resonate with what majority of this land is. And it's no more true than in the show for this land, Les Cirques Arcanu, which does take place in the Wizarding Paris section. It's technologically advanced, it's beautiful in many ways, the animatronics, the puppetry, the special effects, they're all on an incredible level, they're all Universal's top work. But the storyline, because it is so connected to Fantastic Beasts and to 1920s Paris, it ultimately kind of falls on deaf ears, as the audience does not have any sort of connection to these characters or to the stakes or to anything really that's happening, and it ultimately makes the story feel rather milk toast, making the show as a whole kind of feel average overall because the storyline is weighing down all the other great assets that this show has. And creating an average show in and of itself is, not necessarily noteworthy. It doesn't hold anything against you. It's obviously not really a huge plus or anything like that. But when you consider that this is a Universal X Harry Potter creation, it's actually kind of shocking that it would be just average. As with the exception of Flight of the Hippogriff, which is just a re-theme of the Flying Unicorn roller coaster, they've made nothing but bangers when it comes to rides and even Streetmosphere shows, so it's kind of crazy to me that their first sit-down show could just turn out to be okay. But I will tell you what's not just okay. What's not just average is the ride in this land. Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry, which is following in the footsteps of Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, and even to a lesser extent, Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure, in trying to become not only the land-defining ride, but also the park-defining ride of Epic Universe. I mentioned in the beginning of this video, this land is Universal's crown jewel of the entire theme park. So it's no wonder that the only ride in this land would also be considered sort of the put up or shut up ride of the entire theme park. And let me tell you folks, this is the part of the video where I would typically say, yep, and Universal delivered. Except this ride, believe it or not, is actually the part of the land that I am by far the most conflicted about. I mean, we already discussed the Flu Network and the first Ministry of Magic room and how that's all great and dandy. I have no problems with that. Except for, I guess, having to wait in line to enter the Flu Network. I think it's a little silly, but I completely understand it. Honestly, my understanding is the way that I sort of see this whole queue laid out. It seems to me that eventually they do want to do away with that outdoor extended queue and just have you be able to naturally sort of walk through the Flu Network at will. It kind of feels like that's the direction they're heading in here, because if you even look inside the Ministry of Magic in that main hall, there's plenty of areas for seating, plenty of benches and stuff like that. It seems like they want that to be a freely roamable area, and eventually they want the entrance to the queue to be over where like the single rider sign is, if you know where that is. So it seems to me that that's their ultimate goal. The question is, will they ever get to a point where they're able to shorten up the queue to be that? That's going to be the real sort of question going forward. But even beyond that first massive haul, the Ministry of Magic still has plenty of other surprises and tricks up its sleeve. Pretty much all other areas of this queue are pretty well detailed, a lot to look at, a lot of exciting things going on, plus plenty of hidden details and Easter eggs, so it's got all the bells and whistles you really want from a queue. So I really have no issues there. In fact, my qualms really start once you get to the ride itself. I mean, for starters, one thing I actually do appreciate about the ride is the fact that it does have a unique story, right? This is not a story that's plucked straight from the films. It's a story that's unique to this theme park land and to this resort as a whole, which is really cool, right? It's something I'd like to see a little more out of Universal and Disney as a whole. But I do think that the story they chose is a bit of an odd one. Because it's centered around the trial of Dolores Umbridge, and to be honest, I think that a lot of people are going to get lost here. There's no pre-show that really explains everything, other than this animatronic of this house elf you've never seen before in your life that you pass by in about 5 seconds flat, unless you get lucky and get stopped in front of it. I know it's kind of crazy to say, oh, you get lucky if you stop moving in line, but it's the only way you're going to be able to hear what this house elf has to say as far as really truly explaining the story. I mean, obviously there are signs everywhere that sort of spell things out, but I still think a lot of people are going to walk away feeling a little bit confused about what's going on here if they are not familiar with the Harry Potter films. But honestly, you know what? That could be said for a lot of rides at both Universal and Disney and elsewhere, so it's honestly not that big of a deal, because honestly, the oohs and the ahs of this ride still kind of do deliver. That being said, even though I do appreciate it for being a unique storyline, I have to say, I didn't really love the storyline because it is so dang abstract and just weird. At this point, folks, I'm going to have to spoil this ride to bits. There's no other way to do it because, folks, there's a part in this ride where I went, oh snap, this ride's about to get insane. And that was the moment when Dolores Umbridge said, time to go back to the time of Lord Voldemort. I was like, oh my god, this is about to get crazy. And then it got crazy in a way that I was not at all expecting or anticipating. And I can't really say that I appreciate it. I mean, the ride goes so far off the rails. I know we're dealing with magic and wizardry and all that good stuff, but like, folks, I mean, what in the world is going on with the time turner just collapsing time? Like, I guess there's some cool visuals that come out of it, but it's so confusing. It's so out of left field. Combine this with a whole bunch of other confusing things about the storyline. Again, who is this house elf? Who are you? Where'd you come from? I have no idea who you are. Right, you show up in the queue for 5 seconds, but again, I walk by you so fast, I never get to hear what you say. So I have no idea who you are, and you're just like, with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, you're like one of the crew? It's like, I mean, dude, it's like that Simpsons character that everyone claims is there, or it's like the third guy in the presidential election is like, who are you? You're not a part of this group, man. And if you're paying attention during the queue, which, listen, me as somebody who waited a long time in that queue, I paid dang attention to everything in that queue. What you'll notice is that Neville gets a huge mention in the queue, right? He's one of the Aurors alongside Harry and Ron at the Ministry of Magic, right? He works there with them. He's a co-worker with them. His parents are on a painting in the queue. What's strange is that he is not on the ride. He gets all this essentially screen time in the queue, and then just, I guess he had the day off. What was he, sick? Like, where is Neville in the ride? His parents are there. His parents don't even say anything in the queue. What, they cut all their lines of dialogue and be like, okay, well, we can't have his parents talk, because then it would say that Neville was actually supposed to be in the ride, but we took him out? I don't know. It's really bizarre how much of a mention Neville has in the queue, but then just that amounts to nothing. Speaking of stuff in the queue that amounts to nothing, there are all these posters, wanted posters on the wall that show up 1,000 times over of all the Death Eaters that presumably show up on the ride. So I'm sitting there, I'm memorizing their names, I'm memorizing everything about them, I'm memorizing their faces, only for the ride to come, their faces never to appear, and their names to barely be mentioned. I think only one of them has their name mentioned by Dolores one time, and that's it. Here I am like an absolute buffoon thinking, oh my god, I gotta study for the test, only for it not to be relevant whatsoever. Really, whether it's the queue or the ride itself, there are ambitious ideas left and right, ultimately tripping over themselves trying to achieve what they're setting out to do, because many of them are in direct conflict with one another. And I think this is really likely the result of feeling immense pressure, not only from themselves and living up to the expectations they've set forth for themselves, both in Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley, but also because of the pressure that Warner Brothers and the Wizarding World brand as a whole are putting on them to deliver once again. The expectation is always bigger, better, more complex. That is the goal, that is the task laid in front of Universal every time they make a new Harry Potter attraction. So it's no wonder then that they're so desperate to shoot for the stars and aim higher and higher, only to eventually aim so high that you've bent it over backwards and shot yourself in the leg. A great example of this is the overly complicated ride system that this ride has. I mean, we've seen it every single time they've done a Harry Potter ride. It's always got to be something different. It's always got to be something novel, right? Forbidden Journey, first time they had a Kuka arm ride system used for a dark ride. Escape from Gringotts was the first time you took a roller coaster and mixed it with motion simulator aspects a la Spider-Man. And now you have this amalgamation, this monstrosity that's basically a combination of Forbidden Journey, Tower of Terror, and Spider-Man all in one box. And it ends up making for a complicated thing that, at the moment, Universal hasn't really been able to get to work quite right, quite properly. It's resulted in a lot of delays, a lot of breakdowns, and a lot of inefficiencies, and certain effects being scaled back. And I've said it before, that if you make mistakes, if you have issues, if you run into roadblocks because of grand ambition, I am not going to fault you whatsoever. However, in this case, I failed to see what the ambition was all for, because the ride vehicle really is doing very little here. The very beginning of the ride, right, where you're going past those screens, you have a little bit of up and down movement while moving laterally, and that provides a little bit of thrill, a little bit of intensity, a little bit of a unique feeling. But then after that, you really get nothing, right? I mean, there's a slight drop in the middle of the ride, but it's nothing compared to any sort of drop you would get on Tower of Terror or even some other rides throughout the park, if we're being honest. So I can't really wrap my head around what this ride system is doing that's so grand, that's so unique, that could not have been achieved by a ride system that already exists, that has been basically ran through the mill so much where it's become undeniably efficient and reliable. Why could we not have used the ride system that already existed? Why do we have to come up with something new only for it to fail and flop in our face, even though it's not delivering any sort of new sensation that we couldn't have gotten from an existing ride system? I mean, part of my sort of speculation around this is that Universal did have grander plans for its movement, for its motion, only to find in testing that it ultimately couldn't actually handle the amount of motion and intense movements that it wanted to put on this ride system, which is why we kind of have the sort of mundane, sort of more tame version of this ride that currently exists. That's my guess. That's my 2 cents. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, it is kind of that overambition backfiring against Universal, and now you're stuck with a ride system that really doesn't do much for you other than cause problems. But make no mistake, I do like this ride. I mean, the animatronics are incredible. Obviously, the Death Eaters are super animated, they're super fluid, and honestly, the crazy part about it too is they blend in so well with the screens behind it. I don't know if that's a testament to the animatronics themselves or if it's a testament to the screens that are behind it, but either way, they blend in so well. It's honestly incredible. And the giant Rumpet animatronic, that's right, folks, I did my research, I know the name of that thing. That's also awesome. I mean, that's easily the highlight moment of the ride, at least for me, because that animatronic is so wonderfully detailed and it's just massive. It's kind of mind-blowing how big it is. That has to be the highlight moment for me. But honestly, after that moment in the ride, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good after that moment, in all things considered, right? I mean, I think at this point, it's good, it's not great, you know, it hasn't done anything super amazing yet. It hasn't done anything to really blow my mind. It kind of feels like this was like the appetizer for the next big thing, which is why when I heard that voice line of like, oh, we're going back to the time of Voldemort, I'm like, holy cow, let's go. It's the big climax moment. It's about dang time. Only for time to literally implode on itself and for it to become just like, literally my jaw was on the floor. I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, maybe after some more rides, the idea of this sort of abstract conclusion to this attraction will sit with me a little bit better, but honestly, it was so bizarre. And then basically the hero of the story is this stupid house elf who, again, who are you, bro? You are not him. Like, I don't, like, what is going on here? Like, you have essentially no choice but to walk off this ride just absolutely flabbergasted because you're just like, what in the world just happened? Like, it's actually just like, if you weren't already like one of the people confused getting onto this ride because let's say you have little Harry Potter knowledge, well, you most certainly are very confused getting off of it after seeing that conclusion. There's no question about it. I appreciate Universal's ambition here, but I do think they might have went a little too far in the storyline. But make no mistake about it, I would still say by and large, everything about the ride from tip to tail is good to maybe even great in many aspects. But shockingly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I would have never put money on this ahead of time, but I actually do think that this ride is the worst of the Harry Potter e-tickets. I do think Forbidden Journey, Escape from Gringotts, and Hagrid's are better, but who knows? I've only ridden Battle at the Ministry 3 times, so perhaps I do need more rides to sort of wrap my head around what I'm witnessing, because even after that third ride, I still walked away jaw slacked over just how bizarre the ride was. So maybe I need to ride it more to really get a full grasp of what's going on here and really be able to appreciate it. But unfortunately, as a result of that ride sort of being the weakest sort of anchor attraction for one of these lands, I have to say that Ministry of Magic overall as a land is also arguably my least favorite of the 3 lands that they have throughout these parks. And it's unfortunate to say, because you would have expected their latest to be their greatest, but the fact of the matter is, I do think that their over-ambition and the pressure of living up to what they've done before and what expectations were set for them going forward is what ultimately kind of shot them in the leg here. And also having to change plans on the fly last minute when Fantastic Beasts ultimately blew up in their face. So I completely understand why the land didn't work out. I'm not blaming Universal whatsoever. It's kind of a series of unfortunate events, really. But make no mistake about it, the final product is still great. It's just not as great as other things Universal has done before. But I know I'm in the minority. I know I'm probably missing something. Maybe after more future visits, maybe after they work out more of the kinks throughout the land and the ride and the show, maybe perhaps the land will grow on me a bit more. But I still do really love it, still do greatly appreciate it, and do think it's great. Again, just not as good as maybe some other people do. But you know what? If you want to hear me talk about a ride favorably from top to bottom, well, go ahead and click the video on your screen right now to hear me talk about Monsters Unchained. It's not the best thing since sliced bread. It is sliced bread. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.